Hello everyone, I am Maria from Salesforce Network, and today we are here with Kaelan, that is an expert from USA market, and he's based in US. So hello Kaelan, and thank you for joining us today. Let me introduce you. You are a Salesforce expert, and you work mostly with with Marketing Cloud, right? You started
Yes.
you started your freelancer career. You have found a YouTube channel, and also you have people to learn Salesforce. So, what pushed you to start an independent activity like this?
Yeah. So really, while I was working in the Salesforce world, I started my job as a Salesforce administrator, and then was quickly um, introduced to Marketing Cloud. And in that, time frame, it was extremely difficult for me to, understand how Marketing Cloud was set up, how the structure of Marketing Cloud was designed. So it took me a really long time to figure Marketing Cloud out, but as I was figuring it out, I thought to myself, this would be pretty miserable for someone else to go through. So I started, documenting my progress and, pretty much documenting what I had learned so that whenever I decided to, maybe onboard somebody at my previous company, I could help them learn the system a lot smoother, a lot faster. So it really all started out at my first job that I ever worked at, which was really just uh, doing it to help somebody else learn the platform a lot faster than I learned the platform. So with that being said, that really pushed me to start creating, documents so that people could figure out, the entire Marketing Cloud system all in one place without having to scour the web everywhere all over the internet. And then that eventually led into me starting to create little videos to help people so that they wouldn't just have to read documentation, because as we all know, not everybody learns just by reading through documentation. A lot of people learn from reading, from hands-on activities. They learn from watching videos on how to do a subject. So what I really liked was the video side of things, just because I could make a video one time and then that topic or that subject could be repeated and scaled infinitely, So when you make a video one time, anybody can watch it at any given time of day. So that's where I really went. And then from there, it just kept building, and I decided to start a YouTube channel. And then from that YouTube channel, I started seeing that, a lot of people were really appreciative of what I was, creating.
Yeah, I think that you are right, because a lot of time also when I'm struggling with something, I prefer YouTube, where you have, like, for example, the answer of your question instead of looking a lot of documentation. So
Yeah.
you are a freelancer, and can you tell us how is the Salesforce market for freelancer? Do you find job easily, client easily, or how is the
Yeah.
situation
So
you say?
I would say it's not, it's definitely, anything worth having definitely isn't just going to come easy, but it's a lot easier now with the internet. Whenever you do put something out on Facebook or LinkedIn or, Twitter or YouTube, there's such a big market. There's hundreds of millions of people, if not billions of people looking on those websites per day. So, um, when I say it's not easy, it's not easy to create the content, consistently by yourself all the time. You have to be dedicated. It does take a lot of work to build that content up. But once you do build that content up, um, it starts working for itself. So then you start, like I said, you have billions of people possibly looking on the internet for answers, and you've got a lot of people that are looking for those answers about Marketing Cloud. So you've got millions, maybe hundreds of thousands of people looking for answers for Marketing Cloud or Salesforce. And if you're that name that's showing up on one of those websites, and maybe even have your own website, then it becomes easier. But there is a lot of work that you need to put up front to get your name out there. So not being too focused on having your own website per se, but putting content out on the major platforms, like I said, like social media and YouTube is the best way to start. And and then it becomes easier because people are already on those platforms, and then they start coming to you for advice, and they start, like you said, they start looking for answers. And when they find that answer and they realize you're a credible source for the answer, they start, maybe emailing you or direct messaging you, asking you for further advice. And then that's really how you get that relationship started. So it's not super easy to get started, but once you get that wheel moving, it really starts moving by itself, and then people start contacting you. So it's difficult on the beginning, on the front end, but it becomes easier as that momentum gets going, for sure.
Okay, and freelancing usually go together with remote working. So as you know, in Salesforce Network, we are trying to promote this kind of job. So are companies in USA open to this kind of jobs to hire people and freelancer remotely? Because from Europe, it seems really a progressive market. So which is your experience? What do you think?
Yeah, so it just really depends on the area of the country that you're in. So, if you're not familiar with the United States, it's obviously a very big country. There's different standards for different parts of the country. So, it all depends on, some maybe a state that you're working in. Like, say for example, you're in the Midwest, something like Oklahoma, where I'm from, or maybe a Missouri or Nebraska or Alabama, somewhere in the South. It may be a little bit more conservative, only because maybe the businesses there are a little bit more conservative. With that being said, there may be more of a conservative culture where you're required to come into the office and it's more traditional. It doesn't mean that those companies don't allow remote work, but there is more of a traditional way of doing business, which is that come in and work from 8 to 5 or 9 to 5. More than likely it's 8 to 5, and you get that hour lunch break at 12 to 1 o'clock. But you know, like I said, it depends on where you're at in the country. So maybe on the West Coast in California or Seattle or Oregon, you may have more remote opportunities just because the culture out there is a little bit different. And then same goes for the East Coast, like a New York City, Washington, D.C., maybe even Florida. Florida is still kind of considered the South, but it still is the East Coast. But those East Coast and West Coast cities where there's a lot more, it's a lot less conservative and a lot more progressive. There's a lot more companies that are offering those remote opportunities. And the good thing about that is there's a lot of companies out there. So, you know, there's a lot of states in the middle of the United States, but there's still a lot of opportunities on those coastlines of the East and West Coast. But like I said, yeah, it really depends on the culture, and I think that's what really defines, whether companies allow for people to work remotely. That culture of how people live definitely determines that. On the West Coast, you have up in Seattle, up in the Washington area, you have Amazon, you have Microsoft, and you have all those tech companies in Silicon Valley like Twitter, Google, Salesforce. So that's out there in California and Silicon Valley. So, the culture there is working remotely. You've got your developer jobs, you have your high tech industries out there on the West Coast. So the way people think, the way they process the information is just a little bit different, just because that whole entire environment is different. But overall, there is a lot of opportunity throughout the United States. Like I said, I'm not saying the Midwest or the South by any means is completely conservative. It's just a little bit more conservative, you'll find. But in a state like Texas, where it is the South, you'll find, in cities like Dallas or Houston or even Austin, Texas, which is like what I've heard is like a mini San Diego. They have a lot of opportunities. That's where Dell is located. There's a lot of tech startups in the Austin area, same as Dallas. And so those two cities in Texas, they're really big on, being able to work remotely. When you're in those cities, you feel kind of like you're on the West Coast or the East Coast, just because there's a high technology culture there, like kind of like a Silicon Valley, but in the South. So yeah, it just kind of depends. You have to know your market to know, which sort of opportunities you'll have. But yeah.
So I know that United States, really big country, so it depends a lot from where you are. Okay, but do you think the situation also is changing also in the more conservative countries? I mean, the how is the situation from now on? Do you think that is going to change or not?
Yeah, I think a lot of companies, especially after the whole COVID crisis, I think a lot of companies, if if they haven't seen, if they weren't able to see before COVID, they're definitely able to see now the type of money they're able to save by, not having people come into the office, maybe happier employees. So I think for those companies that were a little bit more conservative, they're going to move to being more progressive. Now, it doesn't mean that, they're going to go completely progressive to start off with, unless they saw, a high uptick in productivity while people were working remotely. But there is a sort of a little bit more of a, like I said, that traditional value. There's more of a family culture in the Midwest, as far as, how people just are raised their entire life. Now, I can't completely say how things are on the East or the West Coast, but I know in, Oklahoma or in the South, family and, just that whole, just, being around people is something that people really value a lot. So I think that going into the office is something that people who are older in the Midwest or in the South, they kind of value a little bit more, just because they want to be around people. They want to, have people in the office to say hi, to build those relationships and things like that. And whereas maybe on the West Coast or the East Coast, you have younger people moving out to those areas for more job opportunities, but don't necessarily have families. So it's not that, on the East or the West Coast, people aren't concerned with family. It's just, it's a little bit more of a younger crowd on the East and the West Coast and those tech companies. So I would say in the more conservative areas, they are moving towards, a more progressive way of working, which is, that remote way of life. But it's it's gonna take a while before that whole mindset and culture shifts from, being in the office, saying hi,
So it will be a long road, yeah, still,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So as you know, we have a network of Salesforce experts from many countries. Do you think they will have some opportunity to get US clients even though they are abroad?
For sure. Yeah, I think, like I said, you just want to make sure you put yourself out there and get noticed, because with the internet, somebody in America is going to see you for sure. So make sure that, you start a YouTube channel if you can. Make sure you're posting articles on LinkedIn, and make sure that you're connecting with people from the United States. So connect with recruiters, connect with employers in the United States. It doesn't matter where they're from. If they're from California or San Francisco, great. But if they're from, let's say Tulsa, Oklahoma, do the same. Connect with anybody in America that you can connect with, and start to build those relationships, because there's going to be a lot of opportunity, just because, there's there for talented people, the demand is going to be high. So it doesn't really matter where you're at. You just want to make sure that, you're on someone's radar, so that whenever they are looking for talented developers or architects or administrators, then, your name is out there for them to look at. So yeah, definitely make sure that you're saturating that American market, and you're you're getting your name out there and connecting with people for sure in America. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for you just because if you're talented, it doesn't matter where you're at. They're gonna be
Okay,
looking
so we
for you.
can say that we need two things: relationship with Americans and also publish content, right? I mean, good content, right? To
Exactly.
be noticed by Americans. So okay, this is a really nice advice. And last question for you: which advice can you give to people that are just starting with Marketing Cloud, and how can they get their first job of client? Because as you said before, Marketing Cloud, it's like a niche, so it's not really easy.
Yeah. So I would say a couple of things. If you're just getting started in Marketing Cloud, first, if you're not familiar with the Salesforce world and you're just starting off with Salesforce, first thing you should do is go to trailhead.com. So trailhead.salesforce.com, and then go to Marketing Cloud. So there's different filters that you can put on whenever you go to Trailhead. You can just click on Trails, and then you can search for the Marketing Cloud product. So I would say do all the trails, do all the modules on Marketing Cloud, get to know the platform if you're completely new. But if you do have some knowledge of Marketing Cloud and you're familiar with that and you know how it works, I would say what you should do is you should definitely try to get as much exposure to Marketing Cloud as possible. And I know, for a lot of people may know that you can't just get a Marketing Cloud environment to just practice and play around in. But like I mentioned a little bit earlier, I do have a Marketing Cloud course that you can watch, and you can see how things are built from the ground up as an administrator. And then you can also look at things on Content Builder, Automation Studio, Journey Builder. That's at minuteadmin.thinkific.com. So I've got that course where you can go through and watch all the videos for Marketing Cloud. You've got documentation. So pretty much everything is all in one place. Like I said, you can watch those videos and look at documentation.
Yes, I
And
saw
then
the video and they're really nice. I like it
thank
a lot. Even though I am not working with Marketing Cloud, but they're really nice.
Thank you. Yeah. So that's really there to just, give you a really good exposure to the platform if you don't have access to it. I'm also coming out with a project on my YouTube channel, Minute Admin. And basically, I'm just going to start coming out with some projects where, you can kind of have some real world exposure to Marketing Cloud. And then I'm creating an ebook along with that, so that along with that project, you can get real world examples, and you can download the ebook for free, so that as you're going through the project, you can watch what I'm doing, but you can also get the step-by-step instructions in the ebook. So,
and
you know,
finally, if you have, after someone study, and get some experience, to get the first client, because I think at the beginning it's hard to, uh, cross the line of the first client.
yeah.
How did you find your first client? You have been noticed by your content, or there are other secrets?
Yeah, so I would say the number one way is keep putting content out there. Keep just like, even if it doesn't seem like it's working, even if it seems like your content isn't that high quality, or it's not that great, you just want to make sure, the two things I would say to make sure when you're creating content, especially if it's video content, is make sure your audio sounds really clear and crisp. Make sure you use a good microphone. Don't use the microphone on your computer, because people are going to get annoyed with that, and when people just don't like the audio, they're just going to click away and just read something. So make sure your audio is really good, and then make sure your video is as clear as possible. So make sure you don't have any glitches. Make sure things aren't lagging. So those are my two pieces of advice as far as creating content. But like I said, keep putting content out there. You're going to get noticed. It's inevitable. Like, the internet is too big for you not to get noticed, and people are going to start asking for your advice. And I actually had a client in the UK messaged me on last Sunday about a freelance opportunity because he watched my YouTube channel, and he said, he needed more help. So we're talking about a project that they need help on. So it's all really just because of the content, and that's really how any company gets their name out there, is just letting people know they exist. So
Exactly.
like if people know that you exist and they know what you do, they're going to start asking like that anything, and that's with any business in general. So just let people know that you exist and let them know what you do, even if it's in your own small network. If you have a small network of, let's say, 10 people, but if those 10 people don't know what you do for a living, how are they ever going to ask you for advice?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
that I would just say, let everybody know what you do. If be proud of what you do, and then eventually somebody's going to be having lunch and say, hey, I've got a friend who does that, and then that name could be you. So you always want to make sure that you're putting yourself out there, and there's so many ways you can be creative to put yourself out there. If you're afraid of the camera, you can just do a screen capture and just record your screen. If you just want to write books, go ahead and just write books. If you want to write ebooks, do that. If you want to write self-help guides, if you want to write articles on LinkedIn, do that. Like, there's so many ways to be creative and just start creating new content. It doesn't just have to be video. You can be that person that maybe writes a little bit more down to earth than Salesforce does, and people can understand the way that you write better than the way Salesforce writes, and you may get their attention. You may be an artist, and you may be able to draw diagrams and draw out the way that Salesforce works in diagrams and pictures. And that's really what the world needs. They need more. It needs more content and ways for people to learn. So just
Yes, exactly. I think
yeah,
you're really right. And I think we can also say, as marketers say, that content is the king. So until the
yeah,
content is good, recorded in a good way, or written in a good way, or drawn in a good way, we will find our place in the world, right?
exactly. Yep.
Exactly. So thank you really much for your advice. We really
Yep.
appreciate this. And let's see you on Minutes Admin.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much, Maria. I appreciate being on
Goodbye.
this call. Have a good
Ciao.
one. Ciao.